judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured in return. And why beholdest thou the speck that is in thy brother's eye, and but considerest in the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the speck out of thine eye? Behold,
I think I got click
the
happy.
beam is in thine own eye. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. I was clicking so fast, I clicked through everything. All right. We're beginning today at chapter 3. We're still in the voice of the mother's instruction. We begin with the father in chapter 4. The voice of because a wise son, and this is an important lesson. A father and a mother is essential to raising a child that's going to have all the best tools for life. The best tools. It's not to say you can't raise a child as a single parent. It's just that if you don't think that a child with two parents has an advantage over a child with one parent, I don't know. But then that would have to be one heck of a parent, wouldn't it? And I don't know, honestly, I don't think it matters how heck of a parent you are. There's a lot of rich people, single parents, and it doesn't necessarily give them, that second spouse is it's a different kind of advantage. Anyways, let's read. My son, forget not thy law. Forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days, and long life, and peace, and they shall add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. The new glasses I got are actually not my computer reading glasses, and it is still difficult for me to read. So, actually, right about here is best. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. Honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the first fruits of all thine increase. With the first fruits of all thine increase. That was just a little bit of a jumping tongue. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared to her. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is every one that retaineth her. The Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth. By understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So shall they be life unto thy soul, and grace unto thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy ways safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thy sleep shall be sweet. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Give me a sip of water. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and shall keep thy foot from being and shall keep thy foot from being taken. Slow down. Withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. Say not unto thy neighbor, Go and come again, and tomorrow I will give, when thou hast it by thee. Devise not evil against thy neighbor, seeing he dwelleth securely by thee. Strive not with a man without cause, if he have done thee no harm. Envy not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways. For the froward is abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. The curse of the Lord is in the house of the wicked, but he blesseth the habitation of the just. Surely he scorneth the scorners, but he giveth grace to the lowly. The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the promotion of fools. I like the sound of that. I just wonder if that word is what I think, if it's what I think of as promotion. Like, hey, your promotion, fool. You've been promoted to shame. I don't know. It might mean like exhibition. You know what I mean? Like promotion instead, more of that sense. I don't know. We'll look it up. We're not going to talk about that verse right away. We'll start with the beginning. Begin with the beginning. I got to cough for a second. Hold on. I wish I had a little auto music I could play right there. I could set that up, but it's like that's a lot of time for minimal value. And so for maximum value, let's start talking about the scriptures. Okay, yeah, but first the mother-father thing, I kind of wanted to address that just a little bit. I mean, we've talked about it, I think, but it's important, a mother and a father. A mother has a perspective, a father has a perspective. A mother has discipline, a father has discipline. A mother has her way of love, and a father has his way of love. There's overlap, and not every one is going to be exactly the same. It's good. I always thought it was good that my wife and I have a very strong distinction between each other. We are really nothing alike. In fact, we're exact opposite personalities. We just have exactly the same goals and ambitions and things. So we align perfectly as far as what we're passionate about. But we're about as different as you can be. And that's actually good. It's complementary in a marriage situation. It's good to find someone that complements your strengths. I don't know if that's always, opposites attract. It's not, the externalities are the worst ways to gauge that. I think there is something true in that. You look for someone who has what you don't have, and that's a good thing in a partnership like that. A father and a mother both have something to add to the child. A mother has her laws. My wife has things she cares about more than I do. And it's like sort of her, and I have things I care about more. There's things that they can get away with her that they would not even attempt with me. There's a different sort of law that exists. But of course, the ultimate law is the law of, like she says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. I mean, is that not that's a very Christian sentiment? Because that is what we believe saves us, is our faith in Jesus Christ, our trust in his sacrifice on the cross and his resurrection from the dead, and the power of that our faith in that has the power to wash away our sins and save us from the destiny we so richly deserve, the second death. The blackness of darkness forever. It's like, I don't, I didn't mind not existing, I missed out on most of history. But having slipped in, I'm like, well, I wouldn't mind sticking around with God. When I think about the world and the and when I think about the things He promises, it's like that the things that the harshness of the world will depart from us, and we will live in fellowship with Him forevermore. That sounds cool to me. I want to be there. Okay, so for length of days and for but here's the thing. I was thinking the other day, like we read at the end. I'm always careful to point out, like, we are not saved by works. We are saved by, I think I stated it quite clearly, just what saves us, right? I don't think I have to defend that much. Though I've had people like, just because I do emphasize His workmanship in us, I do emphasize that I feel it is my duty and job as a teacher to poke you and provoke you. I mean, like the Apostle Paul does, to emulation, to go on to do greater things than just I think something about something. That's not right. You've discovered the secret of the universe. It's like you've discovered the key to the kingdom. Why aren't you? I need to, as the proper servant, I need to usher you into the next phase. It's like, listen up. This is important. You have stumbled upon something astonishing by knowing this, and it's hard to give this to people. You know what I mean? When the revelation of God's reality, as it is, well, and also as honestly, just from my very first commitment, in which I had not much of a revelation except that I felt that God, well, he relieved my impending doom as I saw it, which was good enough for me, and I had enough fear of God in me. I believed in God enough and feared Him enough that I was going to try to carry out what I had promised, in my foxhole promise, so to speak. Oh, Lord, save my life, that kind of thing. I was like, well, I got to serve God now. I guess I got to become a priest. But anyways, it's true, though. We don't have to do all the commands. We don't have to keep all the laws. But here's the thing. Being not so bad, as I was talking about, being someone who is like, yeah, I don't lie, cheat, and steal for the most part, maybe just little white lies, and okay, it's like, oh, I don't commit adultery. I have some thought. Okay. But by being in society, at least the baseline, you fear God, that you don't do things. And even in your heart, you repent. That's a good idea too, because if you, like I said, you nourish too many evil thoughts, out of that nourishing of evil thoughts, Jesus declared it quite clearly in Mark, out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, fornication, adulteries, thefts. All these things proceed out of the heart of man. And they aren't the result of things going into them. I mean, you could say like, oh, it enticed me. It's like, well, you were enticed because you wanted it. Not everything doesn't have to be enticing. You think that because you want things. Oh, it's enticing. How can I control myself? Well, take control. I know it's not easy. I've never fully taken control of myself. I'm trying to all the time. Oh, believe me. Believe me. Believe me. But by taking control of yourself, and just in general society, this wisdom is true. Aside from the wisdom of Christ and everlasting life, which is the ultimate wisdom, and that the fear of God should lead us to that. Ultimately, that's what it led Cornelius to. That I read to you in Acts, right? I thought that was very important because it said something about wisdom, the fear of God. It's the beginning of wisdom. And if you have that, you can get so much more. You will get far. I see all kinds of people who show they fear God out in public. Different people I'll see on YouTube and stuff. And as they exhibit that and they live that out, I see them immediately they start to draw closer to Christ, if not fully in there. And I can see the power of Christ magnified in that. And so doing the right thing, it leads to life in this world, yes. It's not a guarantee in this world, by the way. Read Job. Not a guarantee. God doesn't guarantee us anything. Just, keep, like I said, you keep the commandments. Thou doest well. Now sell everything you have and follow me. Oh, that's a lot. I mean, what do you mean? I'm keeping my commandments. I'm doing my tithes. I give you the first fruits of everything. Like it said here in Proverbs, first fruits, pay your first fruits. Your barns will be full. Yeah, well, in heaven, if you listen, if you go down the full, you got to go totally down the rabbit hole. This is just sniffing around the edges of the rabbit hole. As far as life, you want to live? You want long life and peace forevermore? Well, listen to this. I got another law for you, the law of Christ and the law of his bride. You want to live long? You want to live forever? Have everlasting peace? Well, there it is. Mercy and, let not mercy and truth forsake you. There's no reason it ever should, as a true believer. Now, as someone who is on the edge, who's just, it's like when I see someone who has just accepted Christ, right? That you think about that when Jesus told the parable of the sower, like that's every single one of those examples. The path, the stony ground, the thorns, and the good ground. And I don't know that's like a ratio necessarily. I don't go that literal about it. But there's, each one of those types is someone who's heard the word. It's gone in. The path is when they hear the word, immediately, they don't hear it for very long. Those are the ones who kind of think about it for a second, like, nah, right? But then there are the ones who it seems to spring up. You see action there, leaves. The parable of the sower, it comes up and there's no fruit because it withers away before it's not fruitful, right? It springs up. And the one on the thorny ground is choked. The stones was among, what was it? Oh, it had not much depth. Yeah, and the sun arises, persecution. Again, that's like nominal belief, just external belief. And here's the thing, you can't tell initially someone who's, because it springs up right away. You don't know that, that ground's not going to support that plant through the summer months. Because in the summer months when the soil dries out in the top, it needs to have roots going down. Unless you're going to go out and manually water the garden. And this is probably not what the idea is here. The sun does get hot in the summer, and sometimes it doesn't rain for a month or more. And the plant needs to get good deep in that soil. Like out here, we got good soil. It retains a lot of moisture. I never get any, even if it doesn't rain for a long time, if stuff is established, it stays pretty good. New stuff, might wilt because it hasn't established itself. But anyways, you could say, stony ground and even the thorns among weeds and stuff. In the beginning, the plant itself looks okay. It looks like it's in a bad spot among the thorns, but you're like, well, the plant's springing up, right? It received the word, but it's among the deceitfulness of riches, the cares of this life. The Proverbs have a lot to say about the deceitfulness of riches, but it also, there's a way to obtain rich. If you follow the rules and you play by God will not be your enemy in as far as in your prosperity. If you follow what it says here, as far as how to live your life, like in just the external way, just in this Proverbs way. But the way you assure that grace and mercy don't forsake you is by moving past that I've got this one talent and I'm holding on to it and I don't know what to do with it. I'm not doing anything with it. I think I'll go bury it in my bedroom and go back to being an unbeliever basically, and and pursue the things of this life. Or perhaps I'll just walk around with it aimlessly until persecution arises, and then I don't know what, and I immediately drop it because I never knew what I had anyways. I never figured it out. But there's no if you have mercy, what it's saying, it is a little bit of a workspace, because like it's the idea that like, okay, you want mercy, well, behave yourself. Write them upon the table of thine heart. That's usually, keeping the commandments, writing upon the table of your heart. Because that's what it's talking about. Keep the commandments, bind them about your neck, write them upon your heart. And that way, in that way, mercy and truth will not forsake you, because you remember the commandments and God's mercy. Because here's the thing. Keeping the commandments of God is a good way of keeping God's wrath from breaking forth on you. You know what I mean? Not killing, not commit adultery, honoring God. All those, doing all these things, or, just keeping the basic of love your neighbors yourself, and love your God, summing up all the law and those things. Keeping some basic semblance of conscience about that. That is a good way to live one's life. And, even if it's imperfect, it does not make you worthy of eternal life, but it does render you unworthy of like immediate wrath and punishment in this world necessarily. And then if you did perish, it would not be because of, that you've done any great sin or anything. It's just the way of the world. We die. We die. And God has no special, if we do not commit any great evil, we should not expect any great evil from God, from God. But there is plenty of ways that we can, there's evil about the world. And sometimes when it's your time, it's your time. When it's my time, it's my time. I may think my time is much in the future. Maybe it's not. I don't know. None of us knows, but I content, just like when I think about the way things are going in the world and the troubling things going on and the thing, and I'd like to see them stop and go in a different direction. But, not as I will, Lord, as thou willst. And if that be your will, well, then so be it. I will go, let's go face first. It's like, I never shied away from a collision. I've had many concussions from my day. I mean, I'm not a person who is actually very, whatever. I'm not shy about confrontation when it comes down to it. I've always been like, here's the thing. I've never taken earthly authority from my ministry. I've always sought it from God. And if we come down to some really bad things where it's like the truth versus something evil, I'm going to feel incredibly empowered and incredibly authorized. I always hated pushing myself on people. I don't like to do that, but I'm going to feel exceedingly authorized. And that's fine with me because that will make it easy. I never felt like I wanted to, whatever. I just don't have it in me, is what I would say. I never like to push a ministry. Let us mercy forsake thee and bind them about thine and write them upon the table of thy heart. It says in the New Testament, like, it talks about, well, it's not just from the New Testament, the idea is from the Old Testament, how that, that's the essence of the new covenant, is that instead of writing the commandments of God on tables of stone, that they would be written on the fleshy tables of the heart. Fleshly, I believe. You can look that up. The fleshly tables of the heart. And the idea that, we would not, that the commandments would be something you would internally know. But also for a long time, one thing I felt is that one of the things I've benefited throughout my life is having a disposition against certain things. I mean, I don't have it in me to do certain sins. I certainly have it in me to do many sins, but there are some I don't have it in me to do, right? Not everyone has it in them to do them. Like, not everyone, and I've said, and I realized over time, I used to think, and I do still, I want to have effortless righteousness like that. I don't like having the struggle. But I realized over time, that was me when I was young and I first got the gift of the Holy Spirit, and I just wanted the power of God to do everything for me. Because He did so much for me, right? And then He started to make me struggle again in different ways. Or He started to allow it anyways. He didn't prevent it. He didn't use His power to keep me from doing things that He knew I didn't really want to do. But I did anyways, whatever. I guess I did really want to do them. I was of two minds or whatever. And then I started having to struggle again. And I realized that, like, He's willing to use His power, but also He's willing to use our lives and the struggle of our lives to work with us, to strengthen us, and to give us character and stuff that is not just like, oh, well, why didn't God just create us perfect? I don't know, because then we'd be like plastic or something. Maybe he doesn't like that. Maybe he wants us to have character and not just be, oh, I just do good because it's easy. Right? It's easy. Like I said, I'm not so bad. I can't be like Paul and say, I'm chief among sinners. I'm not chief among sinners. I don't think I'm very righteous either. I think throughout my life I've been quite disgusting. But, I know there's greater sinners than me. I mean, holy moly, right? Right? But I don't count that as any badge of anything. To me, I'm just like, well, what can I say for myself? Mediocrity. That's all I think. I'm like, I'm mediocre. There's no, I don't want to say lukewarm because I'm not. I'm not lukewarm for the Lord, but mediocre in my evil. Which is not a bad place to be, I suppose. But I'm just saying, so my turn from evil is not impressive. I don't think it is. I don't think it's impressive. I'm not impressed. So, the Lord can say whatever he likes about it. But, and so, at least from the evils that are not hard. You know what I mean? Things that are not in me. I mean, it's like, oh, I know under which circumstances I could kill, but in which circumstances, I don't think I could murder just somebody innocent. I don't think that's possible for me. I just, I know I've got the anger in my heart that leads to that sometimes. But I tell you what, I've been in a lot of situations where, whatever. Anyways, I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. I don't want to make this about me. You know where your strengths and weaknesses are. And the point is, when someone who's, really turns from evil, I think that's impressive in a certain sense, especially if they have strong tendencies toward it. And, and with God, all things are possible, and he does miracles. But I do feel like him returning me to struggling has made me even stronger. And so, when I was 30, I may have thought, oh, I want effortless righteousness. Now I'm going to turn 50 and I realize the righteousness that I wanted to do effortlessly by the power of God, I also, through the exercising of the Spirit and through the workmanship of God in me, now at 50, do it effortlessly through that. Not through miracle, but through the work of the Holy Spirit, not in a, a snap of the fingers type of miracle. I mean, you could call it, it's a wonder in a sense. Yes, it's a wonder. Something to wonder at. But not anything. But what I'm saying is it's something that I know that I've worked with him on. We've worked on this. And so it's not just like, I've wrought with him. That's what we want to do. We want to work with the Holy Spirit. Because, like I said, the knowledge of God, of how to do in the right things, and not just to know what is right and what is wrong. I want to know how in the situation when it's tempting to do the other, to be strong. It's like you have to actually exercise yourself in those things. I don't know, other than miraculous power through faith. And maybe I need this because God, while he has strengthened my faith much, like I said, I know I never wanted to be a doubting Thomas, but I guess it turns out I am a bit. So, and even though I still, I'm not saying I doubt you, O Lord. It's like my heart gets filled with doubts at times, not of the Lord, but just, the ship is tossing and stuff. And it's like, so, okay, I need to attend to some of this, don't I? It's like, because the Lord isn't making it stop. So I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying to calmly, like, oh, the ship is tossed, but that's all right. And that's all right. That's good. To have the peace of God. And like I said, I think, what gives me the greatest peace in God is to know that I do his will. Whenever I'm the most in his will, I'm at the most peace. Whenever I feel like I'm not doing things that are in his will, it definitely disturbs me. And that's not inappropriate, I think, because you can still make mistakes and sin, but be in God's will in all ways. Because maybe it's decisions and stuff you're making. Because I think some sins are less conducive to doing God's will than others. Making a mistake, an outburst, or something like that is not necessarily a barrier. Having a moment of, like I said, a slip, something that's not a continual issue. Though that also can be a continual issue, right? It can be a continual issue. Continual issues don't matter. It's the question of how does it interfere with your service? And are you aware of the problem? Being aware of the problem is a good thing. Like, I'm aware sometimes I'm too angry or whatever. I have frustration leads to anger for me a great deal, and injustice leads to anger. I also am full of the fury of the Lord for righteous reason, but also I have other fury that is not righteous, and it may be certainly righteous in the sense of like it's defensive of me. You know, I mean, that's where it gets off. You know, it's like, and so I'm fully aware of this stuff, and so, you know, I know when I sin, and I'm always glad to know it, because it's like to sin ignorantly is one of my greatest fears, and I pray often to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, show me my sins. That's how I know I still do it, because I'm like, I don't intend to do it. But show me where I can be better. Show me where I have not the Spirit of Christ. Because when I read Christ, I see that I'm very unlike him. Yet. You know, I remember I was walking around, I was like, something, I remember I was like coming up, what ratio am I at? And I was thinking to myself about there was some reasoning I had, but I'm not going to talk about it. I was like, what, 1 in 8 or something? 1 of 8? Are we at 1/8 yet, or 1/10 maybe? How far have we come along the way? Yeah, I like to think I'm not infinitely far. I like to think 1/8 is a nice, and 1/8 of the way to Christ likeness is or a 10th maybe. I should hope that by 50 I should be a 10th of the way, at least. You know, I like to think it would be even more, but I'm not going to give myself a bigger number than that. You will find favor and good understanding. Favor, where we want to have favor. I'm sure that's the same word we have from before. I'm not sure, but let's find out. I'm just going to look real quick so we don't have to interrupt. Favor is, yeah, that same favor, grace, chana. Chana. Favor or grace. And, yeah. You want to find grace and good understanding? Well, keep the commandments. That's the way it was. Well, here's a new commandment. Have faith in the Lord Jesus. This is the gospel. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He was crucified. He is risen. Now put your faith in him, because he will save you and you will rise from the dead. Though you die, you will yet live. That's the new commandment from God. You must keep it. And in light of all those things, what will you do? What will you do? In light of all this, in light of Jesus, the King, you have the keys to the kingdom. What will you do with them? Open the door. He knocks. You open it. He comes in. He sups with you. You know, there's an interchange, a fellowship. I talk to him about what's going on. This is the thing I don't understand. Lord, help me. Da-da. And I consult the word. I fill myself with it. And the more I fill myself with the word, the more the word speaks to me without consulting it. That's why I'm not a big, like, verse this, verse that. I've read them all a bunch of times. Not all of them a bunch of times. I've read a number of them thousands of times, and all of them a few times. Definitely. I've read all of them. I haven't always, I haven't read Leviticus more than twice, confession, okay? Now, I've read parts of it many times. I've read parts of Leviticus probably dozens of times, but the whole thing, cover to cover, only I've read chapters and used chapters and things like that. I don't do it through the Bible I wish I probably should. Maybe I'll do a channel where it's like, read through the Bible with Paul Strangini in a year, and I'll follow one of those things, and we'll just read it. That'd be fun. I bet some people would like that, because I bet they like the reading more than the commentary. And for me, I find no problem with that. It's like, because people have disagreements, and I'm sure I rub some people wrong. And that's quite all right. I said there's personalities for everyone. That's why I always think there are. I never feel like, I remember people used to say Arnold Murray thought he was a special, blah, blah, blah. And I definitely try not to differentiate myself particularly like that, because I always feel like Elijah was wrong. There were 7,000 men which had not bowed the knee to Baal. And I was thinking everyone's perspective on the two witnesses is wrong. And I think that other people know this, and I've taught this for a while, but that the two witnesses of the end times are not just two individuals. It's like 2 by 2 when Jesus sent his disciples out. That was like a type of that. When they were 2 by 2, and the way they had power to cast out demons and to heal the sick. In the end times, he's going to give them power to smite the earth with all plagues. And if anyone will kill them, the fire is going to proceed out of their mouth, apparently. or at least words that will at least behave with fire and do whatever it is necessary, potentially even kill them. The word of God is power. It can divide soul and spirit, man. And dividing the soul and spirit to me sounds pretty much like death. Yeah, I remember I was thinking, I'm like, I need to like come up with a way to explain to people. I realize it's like, I think when you die, it's basically, I could describe it to people, modern people, like when you die, it's like you go through a wormhole to Judgment Day. That's what your spirit goes through a wormhole to the future where your body is resurrected and you stand in the judgment. That's almost like a wormhole is a good encapsulation of what I think. I don't really believe in sleeping souls. I believe the next thing that happens is that. So it's interesting because like that's way out of left field right here. So let's go back. Trust in the Lord. And I don't really, literally, when I said wormhole, that's just an approximation for reality. Because I think our words are all just silly. They're not silly, but like the amount of weight we give to our words without just breaking them down and understanding, it's just a construct that we have created for something, for an idea of like that you could move through time and space without the passage of time or the traversing of space. Or just move through time, a wormhole through time without bothering to move through space. That's probably simpler, especially when you're disembodied. I mean, right? If there's some essence of us that is disembodied, the idea that you could travel through time and space instantly to the future to be judged, because that's the only way I can reconcile all that. It makes the most sense to me. All right, let's move on. The sight of God and man, and that's how it is good when you behave in society properly. Things are going to go good for you. That's why you get people like Jordan Peterson and I remember that Oliver Anthony was on Joe Rogan. He was reading them from Proverbs. I saw somebody else showing that because I don't really watch Rogan often. It's too long. And I might watch. I don't know. Whatever. It's not the kind of thing I'm usually interested in. It's too much. Whatever. I've watched a few of those, but they get on. They talk about that because it is wise to behave this way. Because God has, even if you don't believe in God, if you act like someone who fears God, who thinks there is like an overarching morality to which people ought to bend the knee. I mean, you ought to like say, okay, yeah, we all have to agree that we all honor this idea. We do not kill each other. Agreed. And this is actually the God we're worshiping. We do not kill each other. We do not commit adultery. It's not the God, but it's helping define who that God is. Because God hates the murder of the innocent. God hates the betrayal of adultery. God hates the deceit of thievery. God hates the, what would you call it? The corruption of false witness. And all those things help define who God is. And when we all agree to that, we're kind of focused on the same thing in society. And the whole society can benefit from that because everyone benefits when we're not just killing each other and robbing each other and stealing from each other and committing adultery on each other and betraying each other and all these things. I mean, of course it's going to be better for everyone. Well, of course. Is it so obvious? Apparently not. To most humans, it seems it's not so obvious, is it? So I'm backed off the mic today again. I keep forgetting about that. I should just give it one more inch and I wouldn't have that tin can sound. Trust the Lord with all thine heart. I've heard this scripture quoted many times, right? This is a big favorite. Trust in the Lord with all of thine heart. I don't know if that's actually how it goes. Actually, I just made that. And lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. It's easy to, people say, well, I mean, God says this, but, I think this would be wiser. Now, fortunately, I can't say that I never sin like that anymore, ever. I've never sinned like when I was young, it's like sort of had this trepidation, like I'm not supposed to do these things, right? And then I found myself doing them. I felt guilty, I didn't. I remember when I was young, when I started committing sexual sins, I felt very guilty. I remember thinking of my dead grandfather, right? I thought he was watching me. But really, I think it was God. I'd put him in the place of God. But now I think of those emotions as directed towards God, as my feeling of the one who is the Father who is watching me, the great Father, who is watching me and disappointed in my fall because I had believed in him and I was doing things that I believed he would not approve of, even though my own grandfather wouldn't care. But my perception of what a great father was someone who would not approve of what I was doing. And I did it anyways, right in his sight. You know what I mean? Be wise in your own eyes. I didn't properly fear God, even as because he hadn't been around. You know, I hadn't seen miracles and stuff like that. And plus, there were so many temptations in the world. There were people in the world leading me to temptation. The world is full of that. I was in public school in a middle-class suburb where, every other boy's dad had a stack of dirty magazines in his laundry room or in his closet. Apparently not, it seemed not every single boy. I said every other boy or every third boy. I don't know. I didn't do an exact survey. I know my father didn't. And I knew it was bad. I was really confused because for some reason my mom had dirty magazines and I didn't never know why. Oh, I knew why later. I heard about it. At the time, didn't understand. Very confusing to a little boy. It's an awful thing to bother a child like that. Anyways, but fear the Lord. Sometimes people think, oh, this is what I'll do. Hey, I'll expose this child to pornography. That way, I don't know, maybe I'll prevent them from being gay or something. I don't know. Maybe they seem too sensitive for a boy or something. I don't know. I don't know what the mentality is with some people, but they're wise in their own eyes. They know better. There are things that people say are right and wrong, and you should fear God. It's like, please, I've never, God, all right, goofball, all right, superstitious, religious, goofy person, weirdo. Please just keep your weirdness to yourself. I don't want it to ooze out on me and get me all gross with your yucky believing in this mystical spaghetti god in the sky. It's creeping me out. I know what's going on. Yeah. No. Don't depart from evil is fun, man. You can do all kinds of evil and it is a blast, I tell you. And I can conceive all kinds of evil being actually fun once you give yourself over to that spirit. Once you betray this fear of God, you just take the paths that lead down to death. You start living out death, breathing it. Like to eating and drinking it, like we eat and drink the blood of Jesus Christ and his flesh. Becoming a creature of evil. People, the world is filled with people who are wise. That's what I think. I know that. And even in the church, I hear people full of wisdom of their own. Because they haven't really listened. They'll quote verses like this, but it doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't. It means to many things to millions of people. I'm just talking about the people that preach it a lot of times. I don't have anyone specific in mind. I'm just thinking about, yeah, right. See a lot of preachers, I think they think they're wise in their own eyes. No one sees what I'm doing. No one knows that I'm really just of course there are charlatans. Of course they're charlatans. What do you think what do you think? What do you think the false teachers were going to look like? Marrow to, this is health to thy navel. Like health to your belly. You ever been sick in your belly? I'll tell you what, I have. I've been sick for weeks on end at times in my life from stress and worry, and it upsets your stomach. And it has an effect on your body. You fill yourself with stress and worry and fear, it will cause your bowels to be affected. I remember when I was a younger father, when I first was a wrestling dad, and I was a wrestling coach. I'd bring my son to tournaments, and man, I would go to tournaments. And remember how I try to cool, when I was young, I never had nerves at sports. When I would go to football games, other guys would be like, I'm so nervous, I got butterflies in my stomach. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was just like gung-ho to go. I want to go out there and just smash heads in and stuff like that. So I can tell how sin could be fun. Yeah, and then, a little bit of fun like that is a little bit of rambunctiousness isn't so bad. But, I would go to these tournaments in the morning, and like along the way, it was like I think it was there was this sort of adrenal fight or flight response that would come over me. My body thought I was in a stressful situation because my kid was about to go into a fight, right? Wrestling fight. And my kid struggled a lot early on because I had to learn how to teach him. And I would start to get stomach aches. And I'd have to go to the bathroom like 3 or 4 times and evacuate myself, all right? And it was like my bowels were upset by I didn't think I actually feared, but there was something visceral in me as a father that I didn't even understand, that I wasn't even thinking about, but I just felt it, and I had it evacuated because I was not at peace in that. There was something disturbing me. Now, as I've been a coach for a long time, this doesn't happen anymore. I was laughing with my wife. I'm like, I go to whole tournaments without ever having to use anything except a urinal. I never have to sit down even once. This used to be the nightmare I used to hate the town of Amboy's high school building, not the people or anything, because it was like, you go there, they had these horrible, like, stalls for, like, I guess when you have behavior problems, so they're, like, this high, like, eye level. So I'm having to sit there, and there's, like, there's at least 8 people in and out because it's a crowded bathroom. You're trying to relieve yourself. I'm like, hey, everybody. I literally talk because this is the way I am. I'm like, hey, welcome to my bowel movement, everybody. Because I don't know how I couldn't. They were all laughing, but I have to confront that. But your bowels, they're affected. Your stomach and your navel is at the center of that. That's why health to your navel. That's where you were born from. That's where you received nourishment. That's where the nourishment goes through. And that can all be disrupted. In fact, they even talked today about bowel disorders being related to mental disorders. All right? So it's good to have healthy bowels. And you could argue that, like, maybe part of, following the law of God will result in healthier bowel movements. I don't know. I don't think it literally means that, because what I'm saying is that seed of stress and fear. Health to your bowels means stability in your guts. That you have guts to face up against fear. That you have guts to face up against stress. That you have guts to face up against challenges. You got guts. He gives you health in your guts. To give you guts to do what you got to do. And marrow to your bones to strengthen you so you can lift the load. So you don't have frail bones that can't hold up under a load or a weight. Honor the Lord with your substance, and with the first fruits of thy increase. So shall thy barns be full with plenty, and the presses shall burst with new wine. A lot of these, there's a lot of doublet where there's 2 verses for the proverb, because it's sort of, this is all in a single part of a thing, but there's like this little, it goes into these details. Because remember, we had the first and foremost, fear the Lord. He hates murder of innocents. Okay, first thing, remember that. Don't go in with people who do stuff like that. So I was saying, it's like, I remember Ben Shapiro was very adamant we look at the pictures of the people who had died in the attack, and I did. And I already had been. I've been looking at them, and they caused great emotional reaction on my part. I mean, I was like tearful about it. And I prayed about it a lot. And then when they were, and it's like, I hear the response, and I hear some of the things people are saying, the bloodthirstiness of it. And also, like, just the callous disregard. It's like this opinion that people think that if a terrorist takes a hostage, that if you shoot the terrorist through the hostage, you're still the good guy, because they're the bad guy. There's always a good guy and a bad guy. When someone's holding a hostage, the good guy rescues the hostage if he can. He at least tries. He doesn't just say, screw it, we can't bother with that. We got to get these terrorists out of here. We got to do this now. There's a price to pay, da-da-da-da-da-da. And such a callous disregard for innocent life. That's what annoys me. It's like, that's not the fear of God. You understand? God is watching. Men don't just get to do whatever the hell they want. You run around in your little tin ships. God will sink all your little ships. A third of them, quite soon, are all going down to the bottom of the sea. Your precious navies are all just a bunch of tin garbage before the power of God. You send your ships by the sea and you send your missiles around to blow things up. I mean, seriously. Blessed are the peacemakers. Cursed are those that make war, except by God's Spirit, except with his weapons of warfare, with weapons that are mighty through God. It's the only weapons of our warfare we're interested in. I'll tell you what, like as I start thinking about things and whatever, some things go on, I'm not stockpiling guns and stuff. I got neighbors that done that. If it's not the tribulation, I got neighbors, But even if it isn't the tribulation, as a Christian, I would still fight with the Word of God, and I still believe it has power, even if it isn't the end times, okay? Unless it's my time, in which case I'm ready to be offered. Lord, not as I will. Like, my will is to grow old and to watch all my grandchildren grow up into young people. And then, whatever, I don't know how long, all my grandchildren, that would make me quite old. Because my youngest is 8. But, yeah, so if I were to see all his children, yeah, I might have to live to be 100, right? Yeah. Not quite. I'd have to live into my 90s to see all my last child's grandchildren. So, no, children, not his grandchildren. Forget that. Well, that'd be 120, right? That's a bit much. I would will to live to 120 if I could do it healthy. I want to live healthy to the end and then be struck down with, like, something big, a car or something. I don't know. Not really a car. I always have nightmares about being crushed under cars. That would be a horrible way for me to have to die in the end. Because I hate going under cars, which I do frequently. My son despised not the chastening of the Lord. Well, okay. This verse is used a lot by prosperity preachers. It's like, bless the Lord with your substance. First fruit. And they always say, and so give your money to me. Give your money to me. Well, if you're chasing money in life, you better give your first fruits to God. You better. But, if you're chasing the increase of this world, whatever it is, even if it's like, I didn't go out pursuing a big family. I wasn't like, Lord, I need to have 8 children. Oh, I got to have 7 sons. I wasn't like that. I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to have kids either. I was just like, I was trying to follow the Lord, and the Lord's leading. And I thought it was the end of the world when I was 20, 21. I thought we were within a decade of that or less. I mean, quite less. I thought it was 5, 6 years at the most. And that was what led me. I'm like, I'm going to stop doing that. By the time 2001 came around, I was totally against the Y2K. I was like, that's not anything. I don't know if I have any recordings about that. I might on tape cassette actually have myself telling my little small group I was leading at that time, the Y2K is not a thing. The idea of the embedded microchips with dates on them being a thing was, especially in all the applications that we're saying, I'm like, nah, this is not a thing. For records and banks and all that, they had to sort it out, but it was no big deal. The idea that the world was going to fall apart. And even now for the end time, if it was the end times, I keep saying it like, oh yeah, now we're in the end times. I'm not saying we're that. As you know, I deny that. But I would be remiss. I'd like to say that, if the world was becoming more agitated, and it just was another part of the agitation cycle of the world. World War II was a huge thing. And this World War III might be even more. And I don't like that idea. I want to stop it, honestly. That's why I'm hunting for something from the Lord. So anyways, I seek rather the prosperity of heaven. And I suggest you do also. It's fine to make money. Of course, we have to make money to live. We have to do things. Paul made tents to survive until he was cast into prison. That's why I don't ask people. I'm not cast into prison. When I'm cast into prison, I may say, or you may hear somebody say, hey, could we need some help for Paul or whatever? I don't know. I don't know. right? You know, it's like he did what he had to do, and we all work and do what we have to do to survive. And of course, and you got to plan for the future sometimes a bit. You don't rely on that plan for the future. You know, I mean, you don't think of you properly position that as, hey, I'm just being wise in this world. I'm definitely not you know, and you make sure you don't like think on it too much, or you know, and don't lay up so much for pleasure. You know, I mean, I tell you what, I see this like rich lady, this one rich lady who was like going down to Haiti and, you know, rescuing these kids who were being basically trafficked for their organs and stuff. You know, I can tell she's rich. I'm like, well, I like she goes on vacation to Haiti and like rescues kids. I mean, she wasn't on a pleasure cruise vacation, but I mean, I can see she wanted to go. She went someplace exotic, which I understand the impulse for some people. I have no such impulse. I've been a couple neat places. I'm not interested. I always feel like this. I have always longed to go places. When I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be an astronaut, like, you know, or a fighter pilot. And so I like the idea of going places and seeing interesting things, but I think it's more important in this life to serve. And there's always time, there's all eternity to explore everything. There's many beautiful places in the whole universe. And I was figuring it's like, you know, I could go climb the ice sheets of Neptune if I want, or maybe just fly up them or something. I don't know. You know. So I'm not going to live regretting not having taken vacations to the Caribbean, but rather having, you know, supported my children and given them my utmost, and done everything for the Lord I could, you know, so that there's nothing left when I die. As far as not nothing, I mean, I'll leave my home to my children. I just mean as far as like that I haven't like laid up for myself anything, you know, that's left over. Like, oh, I had set this all aside for me, Lord. That was mine. I was going to enjoy that. I've set aside enough for myself. You know why? It's because all my life I set aside for myself. I always chose selfishly in many times, and in different ways. And I think I need to reverse that. So, yeah, barns filled with plenty. I am happy for treasure in heaven. And that also is true, though, right? If you honor the Lord with your substance, other substances, right? You can be blessed in this world. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, being blessed and having a lot of money and giving it to other people and doing good with it. Not just handing it over to lazy people that don't deserve it. I mean, giving it to good purposes. Helping the helpless, you know. As if I was helpless, I'd ask you for help. I know there's some people who still like to bless me, and I don't, you know, I recently received a very, very, very tiny 2-figure donation. You know, 2-figure, that's less than $100. So, and I, you know, because I do not solicit, but this is just someone grandfathered in. So I do not use the way of the Lord as a way of plenty in the world. I have a barn that I worked on with my muscles and my sweat, and that stuff is here in the earth, and it's part of the earth, and my earthly body has wrought it. But I've also exercised my mind and my flesh to the service of God, and worked to build up a treasury of my own before Him. And what it is He sees and knows my works. You know, sometimes there have been times when I feared. I'm like, you know, I say these things. If the world goes the way I fear it might go, and I use that word advisedly, but the bad way I don't want it to go is what I mean. If it goes the bad way, I could be in trouble for saying the things I say. And they may come and you know, they'll take away all my hard drives and all my software and all the works I've done. All the things I'm working on that I haven't finished and published. That most troubles me, right? Ooh, your fears, Paul, your fears. It's like, I don't fear that. All that is laid up with the Lord. And whatever man can do to me, I will suffer nothing in loss. Because everything I was working on that I care about has to do with the Lord. You know, And anything I care about also that doesn't have to do with the Lord, I care about it because it had to do with this world. So if I lose this world, I don't care about that anyways. I don't. So I will not be afraid. I will not fear. Despise not the chastening of the Lord. We didn't get very far there. Neither be weary of his correction. Well, that's a good place to start tomorrow. I'm not going to start on that subject right now because we haven't talked about chastening. We've been mostly focused on that. Honoring the Lord with our substance. Your stuff. But what kind of substance also? Also, your substance is just who you are, your gifts. I use my gifts and talents to honor God. The things we're best at in some way we should use to honor God as best we can. Or what we have most of. Whatever we have substance of, our substantial gifts. Not all have money. Not all have gifts of healings or gifts of prophecy or gifts of teaching or whatever it happens to be. But whatever you have, whatever you're good at, helping people, caring for people, nurturing people, raising up strong people, well then do it. And offer it up to the Lord, though. Do it in the name of the Lord. Do it for God. And I mean with a gospel mentality, a preaching of the gospel mentality, spreading of the gospel of Christ, of carrying Christ's name forward. Because that's how we will defeat the enemy, through the power of Christ and through his word. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured in return. And why beholdest thou the speck that is in thy brother's eye, and but considerest in thy brother's eye that is in thine own eye? Thine own eye. Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the speck out of thine eye, and behold, the beam is in thine own eye. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam.